I got a call that my mom had less than a day to live and I needed to hurry if I wanted to see her one last time, and then a 1 in 1,000 year weather event grounded all flights, trains, or hope of a rental car for at least 24 hours. Posted by you/noted heathen. Yesterday morning, I got the call that mom had suddenly fallen unresponsive and that I likely had less than a day to get back to Georgia to see her before she was gone. The call coincided with a 1 in 1,000 year weather event that grounded all flights, trains, or hope of a rental car out of the Northeast for at least 24 hours. I bought 3 plane tickets of $1,000 plus each, only to have them canceled one after another. Then, late last night, we found a flight leaving Washington, D.C. today at 5 p.m. Now we're on the Amtrak from NYC to D.C. I feel exhausted. Defeated. Trying to suppress the hope of arriving in time to hold mom in my arms once more before she's gone forever. I half wrote a eulogy at 4 a.m., and now my brain can do nothing but cycle through memories and strip me bare of every emotion but agony. In one of my earliest memories, I'm sitting on the floor of my parents' powder room, watching mom get ready for bed. The house was quiet, save for the exhaling walls as they settled in the night. Just outside the powder room entrance, the sheer curtains billowed in the breeze coming through the screen door that opened onto the bedroom balcony. Cricket frogs called from across the pond, and the Canada geese circled above, their honks increasingly urgent until interrupted by the sound of their bodies shearing the water's surface. Then all silent until the lonesome train announced itself in the distance. Staring up from my nest of toys on the carpet, mom appeared like a mythic goddess, tendrils of her waist-length blonde hair falling to the floor like fairy floss. Every now and then, she'd stop and smile down at me beatifically. "What you doing, baby brat?" Not long after, she'd tuck me into the king-size cannonball poster bed before slipping in beside me. Wordlessly, just as I began to drift off, she'd slide her hand over to catch mine. 2 squeezes, a question, "Love me?" 2 squeezes of my own, an answer, "I do." She squeezes twice more, "How much?" We squeezed our hands tight in unison. We never had to wait for an answer. Top/relevant comments. Additional info from Op. Thank you all for your kind words. I arrived yesterday evening at 7 p.m., and though mom isn't registering much, at least, not that we can tell, I've been able to hold her, kiss her, sing her favorite songs, and read passages from her favorite books. She's very close now, and hospice says the moment will come any minute. But now that I'm here, those minutes feel torturous. I want so badly for her to finally be free. I keep telling her it's okay to let go, that I'm here, and that her mama and daddy are coming to get her soon. Additional info from Op. Mom died in my arms on July 12 at 6:56 a.m. 6 hours before she drew her last breath, she surfaced and saw me. She'd essentially been non-responsive, aside from furrowing her brows, groaning, and staring blankly, since she was found non-responsive and doubled over in her chair on Sunday. But soon after midnight before she died, she saw me and responded for the first time since my arrival on Monday night. I was kneeling beside her, face to face, as she lay on her side on the bed. I was telling her how much I loved her and would miss her, and for the first time, I sobbed openly in front of her. I'd previously been reassuring and maybe a little professional/chaplain-like, but I could no longer restrain my emotion. I told her that I was crying so hard because I love her so much. And for the first time, her eyes focused on me and scanned my face as she tried to speak, raising her brows and flexing the corners of her mouth to communicate. I told her that I heard her and loved her, too. That I will always be with her, and she with me. That I'll miss her terribly, but that I'd see her again. That one day I'd be right where she is. But that I'd be happy because I knew I'd know she was waiting for me. I couldn't stop crying, but I played her some of our favorite songs, and she rested her eyes again as I kissed her face. A few hours later, she began to struggle to breathe, her jaw working hard as her hands and feet grew cold. I held her and told her how much I loved her and how I was with her and how everything would be okay, until the spaces between breaths grew longer and harder, until they stopped. Update 2 years later. Bear with me, because this is going to be a wild and horrifying ride, but easily Googled if you search Rachel Waters murder. I don't even pretend to have anonymity on Reddit these days, but I'll try to make things as succinct as possible and answer any questions I can. That said, many of you in this community may recall me, as I was a frequent poster throughout my mom's brutal decline from Alzheimer's and cancer, and another user linked my story in here after my arrest back in March. Now that I'm free, I want everyone who has a loved one with dementia, especially if they plan to ever go on home hospice, as we did, to know what happened. In July 2023, I was called by my mom's home hospice provider. She had end-stage multiple myeloma and Alzheimer's, and told I needed to get down to Georgia, from where I live in NYC, ASAP. She had been found doubled over, non-responsive, with an oxygen saturation in the 70s and blackening fingers and toes. She had been declared actively dying by hospice staff, and I was told on the phone that she had hours to days left to live. My husband and I got there as quickly as we could, grabbed our comfort kit from the house. My mom had only been in assisted living/memory care for 3 months at that point, but had been on hospice for several months before, which was when the comfort kit was prescribed to us, and set up a bed in her room. After 3 days with no responsiveness to anything but a pained face as she was turned, she had 2 large bed sores and no food or fluids, along with no urination or defecation. My mom began to experience severe breathing difficulties. Despite repeated requests, the hospice company had not prescribed a comfort kit or morphine to the assisted living facility itself, which led us to rely on my mom's comfort care kit and hospice instructions via phone. Sadly, the single dose did nothing to alleviate her respiratory distress, and she died as expected. Unfortunately, her death was reported as suspicious that same day, and 19 months later, in February of this year, I was charged with 2 counts of murder in the state of Georgia, felony murder and malice murder, both of which carry the possibility of the death penalty. Luckily, I had collected ample evidence, much of which didn't seem to have been available to the medical examiner and district attorney. These included eyewitness testimonies to her death and days leading up to it, videos and photos of her condition. I'd been planning legal action for suspected malpractice, so I was documenting everything: proof of her prescribed morphine, phone and text records, as well as hospice records that showed she had been declared actively dying, and that I was called down from NYC to be with her. With this new information, the medical examiner updated her cause of death, and it was no longer ruled a homicide. The DA then dropped all charges in August, and I was released from my $200,000 bond. Though I was cleared, the experience devastated me. I lost my career as a science/medical copywriter, my life savings, and my husband's, my family. They cut all contact as soon as I became a suspect, and my reputation while grieving my mom's death, and the agony of both cancer and Alzheimer's, and fighting for my own life. But now that I'm free, I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that what happened to me never happens to anyone else ever again. While on bond, I'd spent months researching how this happened to me, and I realized that none of it would have happened had the hospice company kept an official record of the fact that 1. I had been given a comfort kit, 2. I was authorized to administer the medications, 3. The medication use had been regularly recorded by hospice to confirm appropriate use. Because there had been no records aside from my own documentation, the assumption seems to have been made that comfort kits are not allowed to be used by families, only by medical professionals. In fact, several attorneys I spoke to after the incident expressed shock that laypeople were ever allowed or told to give morphine to dying loved ones, as many believed it was illegal. However, millions of American families are prescribed and instructed to use comfort kits with their dying loved ones every year. When I was charged, I had no idea there were no legal protections for this use. It's why I assumed, after being accused, that everything would soon be cleared up once investigators realized this. But no one ever seemed to. I realized then that what happened to me had exposed a huge gap in our home hospice care system. While caregivers are routinely provided comfort kits, no legal protections exist to shield them from criminal allegations once their loved one passes away. This is very different from healthcare providers, who are protected from such allegations. Now, I'm proposing Marcia's Law, in my mom's name. This law would mandate that, as soon as families are prescribed a comfort kit, hospice would document and confirm that this kit is for the family to use in accordance with their training/guidelines. At this point, families would be asked to keep a record of their comfort care use, including the dosage and symptoms that prompted it. Finally, on a regular basis, hospice professionals would verify this use so there is a clear record of documented/authorized use. Such a law would have prevented what happened to me. But until the law I want becomes a reality, I want to post the following advice for everyone here, because if this happened to me, it will happen again to someone else. 1. Once your loved one goes into hospice and you receive your comfort kit, ask your hospice nurse/provider if you can make a video recording of their instructions for its use, and try to record them giving you the permission to record. This is important depending on state laws. Not only will this help confirm that you are indeed the authorized person to give these medications, but it will also help remind you of the exact instructions if and when your loved one begins to experience distress. 2. Keep your own document recording comfort medication use, including the amount and symptoms that prompted it. Even better if you can get the hospice provider to sign and verify. This way, if someone accuses you of abuse down the line, you have some documentation of appropriate use that is witnessed by a medical professional. 3. Finally, and this is the hardest/worst part, if your loved one is in profound distress and nearing death, recording their condition and symptoms via video may prove critical in giving investigators and medical examiners needed context for their death. My videos very likely played an important role in my case, as some people at the facility she was at had falsely alleged online that my mom was singing and dancing just before she died. Videos, photos, and hospice's own records of her condition proved otherwise. These videos and photos, since they are so triggering, are hidden in a private folder on my husband's phone so I never have to see them. /relevant comments. Commenter. That's absurd. Thank you for sharing this here to warn everyone. Ops response. It's terrifying to open up about this because no one here knows me or knows that I'd never do anything to my mom, but it was so breathtakingly extreme and terrifying that I needed other caregivers to know how they could protect themselves. I see others in here all the time expressing wishes for their loved one to die or conflicts with family, with few realizing all of that could be used as evidence if someone accused them after their loved one died. My own wishes to go to Switzerland, I share my mom's Alzheimer's gene, appeared in the evidence against me. Commenter 2. Holy crap, I feel so bad for you. You are one strong woman, as I highly doubt I would be able to redirect my anger into something that would help others. Kudos to you. I hope for the rest of your life you have nothing but happiness and joy. Ops response. I owe it to my mom, her memory, and every other person who relies on hospice to ensure this never happens again. I just hope I can get enough support to make it happen. Thank you. Commenter 3. Wow, I was actually just thinking about this case not long ago, and I had no idea that the charges were finally dropped. So very sorry that you had your life gutted so unnecessarily, and I really hope that you can pull it together again. Ops response. My savings, reputation, ability to get work, and to grieve were obliterated, so raising awareness and fighting for this law is my full-time unpaid job for the foreseeable future. At some point I'll be able to finally sort through her estate. I'm hoping I'll be able to process more at that point.